So before we implement our infrastructure and start generating JWT tokens for our users, let's discuss what these actually are. Now, a JWT token is a JSON web token. That's what it stands for. And the JWT token is made up of three parts. We have a header, we have payload, and we have a signature for the token itself. And the token is sent back to the client in the form of just a long string separated by 3 periods. And this token is passed to the client, and then when the client wants to access a resource on the server, it sends this token every time. Now, the 3 parts of this token: the header describes what the token is, and that's specified by the type key, and in this case it's a JWT. We then have an algorithm key, which specifies which hashing algorithm is being used to create the signature component, the third part of our JSON web token. And in this case it's using HMAC SHA-512 as the hashing algorithm. The payload of the token is the data that's stored inside the JWT, and this is sometimes referred to as the claims of the JWT. Now, in this particular example, we have 3 time-related fields. We have an MBF, which is not before, when the token can first start being used. We also have an expiry date, when the token ceases to be valid. It has a certain amount of lifetime. And we also have an issued at date. Now, also inside this token be some claims that we pass along with the token as well. There's just one in this case, and that's the name ID, or the username, of the user that this token is issued to. Now, in our application, we're going to use the username as the unique value that we'll use to get the currently logged in user, and we'll use it in several places around our application. Now, what's also important to note is that anybody can decode this token. Whilst it is encoded into a token of this string that's in 3 parts, the payload, what we send inside the token, can be read by anybody. So we do need to be careful about what we send back as claims inside the token, because anybody who gets this token will be able to read the contents of this token. And also, because this token is sent with every single request, it also helps to keep the token as small as possible, because it's going to go along with your request to the API. Now, the signature component, the third part of this token, this is what our server uses to verify that this token is valid and hasn't been modified or manipulated in any way. And our token, before our server sends it out, applies a signature to it that's encrypted with the algorithm that we specify in the header. Now, our tokens are signed with a secret key that we store on the server, and we never send to the client. So in order to verify that this token is valid, then all our server has to do is check the secret key that we leave on our server, compare it to this signature, and it's able to tell if this token is valid or not. And this means that we can authenticate our users after they've logged in and been issued this token. This means our server doesn't need to make a call to the database to verify that our user is who they say they are. So let's just take a quick look at the process of this. And if a user, after we've added authorization to our API, tries to go and get a list of our activities, then at the moment they're going to get a 401 response saying they're unauthorized. And our computer here has a sad face. So after we've implemented identity and authentication, then what our client is going to be able to do is log in to our API. And our API is going to check the username and password using the sign-in manager that we set up earlier on. And if the request is okay, as in the username and password match, then we're going to return a token. And if it's not okay, then we're going to return a 401 unauthorized. So if it's okay, we send back a 200 OK, and we also send back the JWT token, and the client keeps the token stored somewhere safely. Now, in our case, we're going to be storing the token in local storage on the client's browser, but we'll come on to that. The client then uses this token when it makes the request, and it sends it along in an authorization header as a bearer token. The server validates the token based on what's contained in the token and the signature, and if it's okay, it will return the response and the data. And again, if the token is not okay, it's been manipulated, or it's not a valid token, or it's expired, then the server will return a 401 unauthorized response. But if it's okay, then we get the 200 plus our list of activities and a big smiley face on the client. So when a client signs in successfully, we need our server to be able to generate a JWT token and send it back to them. Now what we're going to do to achieve this, we're going to introduce another project into our application, and this is going to be an infrastructure project. And this is going to contain services that we want to provide to our application as a whole, but it doesn't fit into either our API, our application, or our domain. And at the moment, our infrastructure project is going to have a single job. Its job is going to be to generate JWT token. And what we want to achieve from this, we want our infrastructure project to be responsible for the generation of tokens. Our application handlers are going to know nothing about how to generate a token. All it's going to know is how to request a token from our infrastructure project. Now what we're going to need to do to achieve this is we're going to need to give our infrastructure project a dependency on our application, and our API is going to have a dependency on our infrastructure project. And we're going to create two classes, well, one interface and one class. And our iJWT generator interface is what our application handler is going to use to create a new token. Now we need our API to have a dependency on the infrastructure project because we want to make this service available via dependency injection to our application project. And once we have this in place, then what we'll be able to do is use this iJWT generator interface, which is going to have a single method to create a JWT token, and then our application handler will be able to ask our infrastructure project for this token and then return it with our requests via our API and then send back to the client. And this is what we're going to implement next.